and welcome to another episode of The Full Scoop. My name is Oded Ran, and I'm co-founder and CEO at Clue, the hosts of this show. And today we have with us Philip Nell from Bell Equipment, hailing from South Africa. Hi, Philip.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
You bet. It's great to have you. We're always happy to have people who work on telematics at the OEMs, which for most people on the show, that's like the biggest black box. And before we start, tell us a bit more. Most people on the show would obviously know about Bell and the company, but tell us a bit more about Bell for the very few who don't yet own a Bell equipment.
Well, Bell Equipment started off close to where it is today on a farm just outside Mbangeni in the northern part of KwaZulu-Natal, and grew to a worldwide organization today with 64 dealers and branches across the globe at the moment.
Amazing. And you have been with the company for how long?
Just a short period, about 6 days ago. Been with Bell for 19 years now.
That's great. So we're going to spend time talking about Fleetmatic, Bell's telematics suite. And how long have you been involved with that team?
I've been involved for about 12 years in that team. Joined the team initially, then moved to a different department, and I've recently joined back again into the team.
Okay, so where should we start? How about let's reminisce a bit about the past. From what you can tell us about the origins of telematics today, when people purchase a new piece of equipment, it comes for granted they will have telematics. But that certainly was not the case 12 years ago when you started at the team, correct?
No. 12 years ago, when we started, we said, okay, does it need to be standard? Then we provided as an option for customers. And a lot of customers back then and probably today, and that's one of the myths that we have or have to debunk, is that this telematics is not actually a tracking utility. So it's not similar to what you experience in your car that gives you a position update. And this is actually a production tool.
And so the first few days, version 1 of the telematics system provided what?
Very little. I remember the days when we started it up. Our satellite provider that we used at that stage were only able to give us 11 bytes of data. So all the information that we had to package in, we had to package in into 11 bytes.
Wow. And things really changed. So fast forward to today, let's talk a bit about the bells and whistles. Oh, no pun intended, of Fleetmatic and of telematic systems. Obviously, like most OEMs, you offer the AEMP or the ISO as standard of data, but you do also quite a bit more than that. When you think about telematics, do you think internally, how do you differentiate what additional value you can provide owners of the equipment?
Yeah, so initially when we designed and developed the system, we were focused on purely providing a customer with production information. And as most OEMs these days, we have split our focus into two fields now, still providing production information with the customer. But I think the OEMs value the telematics information themselves now. So they are designing and developing more tools and ideas and stuff to use the telematics themselves. And it's gone beyond telematics now, where we can actually, remotely configure units with our next generation hardware. We'll be able to remotely program units. And I'm sure within the next couple of years, we'll be probably sitting in an office and controlling the units with a remote joystick kind of thing.
Wow. So let's talk a bit about that, because that is a sea change, correct, from where we've been. And it sounds like software becomes more and more important within what is traditionally extremely hardware business, right? Equipment, there's nothing heavier than heavy construction equipment in that sense. So how does that work? Tell us a bit more about the mechanics within an OEM. As you design a new model, In what stage does the telematics team get involved in thinking about how do we enable this new functionality or the new features or whatever that would be into to customers and to dealers?
Yeah, so I mean, the telematics team, I would say, is quite involved. The machine still needs to move dirt or do a basic function like digging or excavating, etc. So that mechanical portion will probably remain there, and the need for power and to move dirt and stuff remains there. But what we've seen is a lot of focus on technology is designed into the machines these days, and not just telematics, but in efficiencies. So what we're trying to do is to reduce the cost to move that dirt and to make the machine as most effective. So from that point, as we're introducing more and more software, and some OEMs has got grading systems, digging systems, and that couples into the telematics now, so that you can get actually that information to the machine and back to the database, so you can track your progress and stuff as well. So the way forward I see is that all machines will basically be digitized, if I can call it that. So in the past, we used to fit the telematics solution onto a machine. These days, it's actually designed into a machine, so it's fully integrated into the software, into the display modules, etc. So it's part of the machine. It's no longer add-on or afterthought.
That's fantastic. And on a day-by-day basis, do you find yourself spending most of the time of the team dealing with end customers and companies or with dealers?
I try not to spend a lot of time with end users or customers, as we are more focused on developing and delivering unique and more solutions for customers. So we just get involved if there's critical items, but we do go onto, I would call it a road show, where we do once or twice do a trip through the States or to the UK, and we go and spend a week or two just with customers and discuss the ways forward and stuff. So from a day-to-day, I would say probably about 10% I spend with customers. The rest I put aside for development.
Great. So tell us a bit more from what you can share. For example, the type of things you're working on this quarter on. Again, don't give away any proprietary information, but what does a day in the life or in the quarter of a telematics manager like yourselves entail?
So what we've already got the ISO standard up and running. We've just we hopefully at the end of this week we're going to release the version 2, which will provide some more endpoints for the customer to drive us as close as possible to, I think, the 20 endpoints that's available on the ISO standard.
So
Then
that's
we are
that's
also
breaking news of the full scoop. It's coming up.
yeah, yeah. And then we are in the final stages of our hardware 3 controller design. So we are about to lay out the PC board within the next couple of weeks. So I'm very excited with that. With that hardware that's going into production in about 2 years from now, we'll be able to remotely do firmware updates on our machines.
That's fantastic. And companies, many perhaps in transportation, less so in construction still, are implementing more and more video and dash cam. And with 4G and soon 5G being, pervasive and available even in remote places, that means there's more bandwidth. What can you tell us a bit more about let's say the 3 to 5 year roadmap? Where do you see, for example, Bell and other OEMs starting to offer things like video and other bits on top of telematics of what they do today? Is basically you no longer have to worry about the 11 bytes you had to worry about 12 years ago. Now you can send maybe a gigabyte an hour if you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, the first thing that we as an OEM is focused on is doing firmware updates, because that will free up our support guys. Instead of spending an hour or two on the road, another hour for induction on site. So we're going to free up those critical skills to help more customers. Going forward, I mean, we potentially can activate the camera in cab ask the driver to give us some inputs, and by the telematics system read these inputs and fault find the unit remotely. So there's vast opportunities with the speed, data, and the peripherals around that you can support with. You can mount cameras around the machine, live stream that into the office, and even with 5G that will enable us to do some sort of autonomous control on vehicles.
That sounds super, super exciting to see what the future holds. Now, one of the things that you mentioned with all this functionality, obviously will be relevant for people who own Bell equipment, but pretty much every company we speak with at Clue has a mixed fleet. And we ended up obviously offering a way to aggregate and normalize and standardize all the data from Bell and other OEMs into a single platform. What do you think will be the future for that? Do you envisage that we'll soon have a new standard by ISO that will normalize data? Or actually, we will always have to rely on third-party companies like Clue and others to end up enabling people to get all this information from different OEMs and give it to the end user in one place? What do you, having seen this industry for so long, what do you envisage will end up happening?
Yeah, look, we've seen a big move in the past. A lot of customers were happy to have 6 or 7 web pages open to view all the telematics systems. But I mean, we all are moving into a digital environment. 10 years ago, we didn't have mobile phones with mobile apps and stuff like that. So the speed at which we're developing and the direction we're going has opened up the play field, if you want to call it that, for third parties like yourself to provide a platform for a customer to have a single log on and to compare apples with apples. Because if you even compare OEM information with other OEM, the way we measure certain parameters is different. So I think the ISO platform is a great platform because it standardizes all the data, and for the customer, you can then see all its data on one platform. And I think going forward, it's going to probably remain there because a lot of development is happening on an OEM level as well. We rather focus on developing support for our customers, remote diagnostics and stuff, and then provide a little bit of information on the AMP rather than developing third-party solutions for them and stuff. So we also at Bell have got the capabilities of reading in other OEMs or third-party information, supplying it on the website just for convenience sake. And we're also rolling out our hardware solutions for our customers that would like to fit third-party solutions or third-party products with our solution.
And do you think with things such as remote connectivity and controlling equipment remotely, we're going to end up having a standard for that? So in 10 years' time, I can have a third-party app that lets me control my equipment, but it works with every OEM, or that's a bit too far-fetched and too specific to have a single set of functionality?
That is coming, definitely. If I'm not mistaken, there's already a standard available. We'll just have to confirm that. But that's what Bell has done. So just jumping a little bit to the sideline from telematics, we've developed a hardware solution that the customer can pay for today and install onto his machine. And then he can remotely control the device using his third party with a set of parameters that we provide. And if I'm not mistaken, that is a standard, or Bell will then give them the standard. But I'm sure there is some sort of ISO spec already available for that.
Great, great. And I'm sure we're going to be seeing more and more of that coming up. And with that in mind, you must be seeing companies deploying and using telematics to varying degree of success. What have you seen that you feel that's a best practice? If I would speak with all of the Bell install base and customer base, I would encourage them to use telematics to the extent that this client has done. Can you share with us some best practices that you've seen?
Yeah, the best practices that I've seen is where companies has taken the telematics data and has written procedures in their organization to use data, and they vigorously check it daily or weekly and take action from it. from the cases that I've seen is where companies take telematics data, they look at it for a week and say, this is great information and stuff, and then it kind of falters away. Where the guys have really integrated it into their daily work checks and put targets in for them, it's substantially made a difference in the business.
And more companies now, perhaps due to the impact of COVID-19, which we'll speak about in a minute, are concerned about their top line as well as bottom line. And they're measuring more and more the total cost of ownership of their equipment, not just the price of the equipment, but the ongoing maintenance, parts, utilization, idling, and so on. Is there anything on the telematics side that you're thinking about providing, helping customers see the value of owning piece of Bell equipment compared to any other OEM?
So not too much on the telematics side, but what we're doing on the product side is we are investigating various sensors to measure how hard the equipment is working, and then obviously through telematics provide feedback to the customer. For example, if a machine spends 50% of its time idling, you might want to service it sooner or later. They are talking about remote diagnostics of oil analysis, so you can do oil analysis on board. So it's okay, normally we change hydraulic fluid at 4,000 hours. Based on the sample that's on board, we postpone it to 5,000 hours. So obviously that feeds through with telematics, but yeah, there's lots of development to digitize the machine itself as well, and using the telematics platform just to provide that information to the customer.
Great. So it sounds like a lot of things are going really well according to plan. And sometimes we learn the most from things that are going anything not going at all according to plan. So can you share with us any story of something in the last 19 years or 12 years in telematics that didn't go according to plan, and what happened?
Well, I can remember one specific instance, and I'm sure out there I've got a nickname of water tanker. And the reason being is we did some end of line configuration one evening, and the next morning I received the first call about the machine that didn't want to tip. I thought nothing of it, but after the third or fourth call, I started digging and found out we had mistakenly sent along wrong parameters to the machines, and they were all converted into water tankers, so they weren't tip. So yeah.
So it's interesting, and I'm sure no one was injured, and other than a bit of perhaps pride, but that's it.
Yeah. Luckily, no one was injured, and yeah, we managed to fix it remotely, fortunately, and off everyone went again.
So it's interesting because one thing that definitely we are realizing is that as digitization of equipment will become more and more important, so is the introduction of skills like quality assurance and so on that previously, perhaps was not the most important thing. So, for example, if God forbid tomorrow a machine is remotely operating and there is a software bug and it starts doing something you see in the movies, that would be a problem. So, are you, from an engineering perspective, are you already employing, I'm assuming, people whose sole job is to check the quality of the code that goes in and build the architecture in a way that's safe to operate?
Yes, absolutely. And we need to comply to some SOC levels when we develop that kind of software. So there needs to be, even down to hardware, you're only allowed to use specific controllers. So they need to be EMI tested, the code needs to be verified, etc. And at this stage, we are in trials with autonomous vehicles, but because for that reason, no one is allowed on site when those vehicles operate. So if a vehicle breaks down or something goes wrong, the whole site needs to come to standstill, not only the broken one, but the complete site, and then only people are allowed. So yeah, the people or the industry is still a little bit scared about the technology, I would say. but they are really embracing it, and they are taking robust safety precautions to test it and run with it.
And I assume that that will in future include even cyber security, right? Ensuring that a machine cannot be tampered with and so on.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look on social media or YouTube, you'll see lots of videos where they potentially hack into automotive vehicles already and take control over. So yeah, we're definitely doing encrypting of data, into encryption, etc. So going forward, we will definitely make sure that there's sufficient security on our equipment.
Great. And I mentioned COVID-19 earlier. What was the impact so far on COVID-19, both for the company operating from South Africa and for business? And we're now already in July when we are recording this. What are you seeing in the market at the moment?
Yeah, so the COVID has had a significant impact on Bell equipment, and that's a direct impact on our customers, which is transferred onto the factory, obviously. So the South African market is absolutely dead at the moment. We are running at about 50% capacity at both factories at the moment. So we did start our production when South Africa moved to level 4 lockdown. Luckily, we also have an assembly plant in Eisenach in Germany, where we also manufacture ADTs for Europe. So yeah, we're in for some tough challenges, but it also opens one's mind again to see how with the digital platforms and stuff and telematics data you can cut where you need to be. So yeah, it's not just doom and gloom. There's some opportunities as well, and we're confident that we're going to get through this.
Perfect. Well, and definitely sending best wishes of getting back to normal for both the country and for the company. And we'll finish with one question I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, you work at Bell Equipment, so you can probably get the keys for any piece of equipment, maybe for any piece of equipment of the manufacturers. So if you could have a fun day with a piece of equipment and do whatever you wanted to it, which one would it be?
Well, if I decide, so let me just put it that way, is Bell Equipment manufactures ADTs, tractors and trial wheelers and stuff as well, but we're also a dealer for various other brands in South Africa. And we recently had a product introduction or familiarization time on our test farm. And I must say, I really enjoyed operating an excavator.
Great. Excellent. So an excavator it is. For anyone watching this, if they wanted to get in contact, ask specific questions, and use 1% of the 10% of the time you spend with customers, what would be the best way to get hold of you and then speak with you digitally?
And the best way is probably LinkedIn. If they want to leave a message there, we can touch base there, or on our Fleetmatic website there's also our contact details.
Fantastic. So, Philip, thank you so much for being with us. As always, after this episode, you'll find resources and more information about Bell, about Fleetmatic system, and Philip's LinkedIn contact and the link to Fleetmatic contact us. Philip, thank you so much for being with us on the show. I very much look forward to speaking with you when lots of the exciting innovations that you described come to life. And thanks for joining us from South Africa today.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if you are in South Africa and come to visit Cape Town or Richards Bay, you're more than welcome. I'll give you some keys to ADT.
Consider it done. Thanks so much, Philip.
Thanks, and have a good day.